Good evening and welcome to the Late Late Show with me, Irish Tommy. As always, thanks for joining. Should be a really interesting one tonight. We've got a lot to get into, and thankfully I won't be doing it on my own. You all know Gatesy. Welcome, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. My back's a bit sore though, so if at any point I grimace, that's what's going on.
Right, is it you've been carrying the show? That's why.
No. I did a bit of an injury, and it came about in quite a strange fashion. And I'm hoping that when I reveal what I did, people will they'll laugh.
Yeah.
But then they'll probably sort of like recount stories of an injury that they've sustained in sort of like quite an interesting set of circumstances, and make me feel that I'm not alone.
Yeah, we're after the watershed, so it's probably okay for you to tell us what happened.
I hurt my back getting up off of the toilet.
You've been straining too much, that's why.
No. I mean, it all sort of like went its normal path. I didn't have to push too hard or anything like that. And then, you sort of like you finish what you finish, and then you've got to get up. And as I got up, I hurt my back.
Well, it's yeah. Look, that's
shit up.
Unintended. Yeah. Well, all right. On the plus side, I suppose it can only be uphill from here.
Indeed.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah.
Unless
mate.
Yeah. Unless it's going to be like one of those West Ham game of two halves, started off badly and then faded.
Yep. Yeah, it's a bit like our season, really. It's already looks like our chances of winning the Premier League have bit the dust. Our chances of winning the League Cup have bit the dust. Well, so normal services resumed.
Yeah, I miss Barry Fry, by the way. I used to absolutely love that. I was plagiarizing Barry Fry there. I think it was when he was manager of Birmingham and they'd lost the game and played really poorly, and they were interviewing him after and asking him about how he felt about how the game went, and he said, it was a game of two halves. We started off badly and then faded.
Do you remember there was Barry Fry? I'm sure it was him at Birmingham when they turned around and said it was a bad run, and someone said to him about a gypsy's curse and all the rest of it, and they turned around and convinced him that the only way to get rid of the curse was to go to all four corners of the pitch at St Andrews and take a piss in each corner.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
absolutely crazy, isn't it?
Barry Fry. For people who don't remember Barry Fry, just kind of look him up on YouTube or something. The guy was absolutely brilliant. He was priceless. I remember. I think they were playing. I think it must have been Intertoto Cup or something, and they played some. I can't remember who they played, but again, they lost, and he said first half says we were like Juventus, and second half we were more like Fray Bentos.
Good analogy. Good analogy.
Yeah, Barry Fry was absolutely priceless.
I think he's still director of football at Peterborough, isn't he?
Sure, yeah, I think he's still knocking about. Yeah, and I wish he was on TV more. I really do. I wish he was interviewed more. He's just one of the best characters the game's ever seen, Barry Fry. Absolutely
the word I was going to use, a character. We don't have enough of them in the game.
We don't, no, definitely. And it feels like there used to be more of them. It's like Brian Clough and all them. And I think managers are just too safe now. They don't want to say anything too controversial, or they'll maybe moan about a few decisions, but
all the PR training and all that shit.
They're all like media trained now, and you don't get so much of the off the cuff stuff. And it's a pity because there were some real characters, and probably still are some characters in the game, but they're just far too guarded now. About anything that might get them in, and people's sensitivities now, I guess, are.
Yeah, we can't offend people, Tom.
Yeah,
we'll get cancelled.
Yeah, no, they probably can't get away with what they used to. You know what I mean? I remember there was Brian Clough. I remember when Mark Crossley was in goal for Forest at the time, and they'd played on the Saturday, and he told Brian Crossley to come to his house on the Sunday morning and bring his gloves. And he was like, "What the hell's going on?" He made him play for his son's team.
Yeah,
they were like a Sunday league team, and they've all come out on the pitch, and the opposition players are like, it's Mark Crossley in goal. I think they ended up getting in a bit of hot water, the team. They had to forfeit the 3 points. They had 2 points at the time for the win. I think they'd won it,
Yeah.
but and kept a clean sheet. But they
Yeah.
they got in a bit of hot water with whatever league they were in because they had Mark Crossley in goal. It was
Do you know the story that he tells about David Curry? Have you ever heard that story?
don't it doesn't ring a bell. You'll have to refresh my memory.
So David Curry was a striker that Brian Clough brought to Nottingham Forest from Barnsley, which is where Mark Crossley was from.
Mm.
And so Mark Crossley tells the story of basically they were a 4-4-2 team, and they each position they had rules. So goalkeeper, what's your job? Keep the ball out the back of the net. Centre backs, what's your job? Head the ball, kick the ball as far away from the goal as possible. Central midfielders, what's your job? Take 2 touches, play the ball forward, etc., etc., etc. So anyway, played this game. I think it was away to Norwich City, if I remember correctly. The story goes, and David Curry did something during the game that was basically completely against Brian Clough's rules for each of the positions, sort of thing. And this was in the first half, and he just basically went, right, that's him, done. And he puts up David Curry's number in the first half and subs him off. But he doesn't bring a player on. So they play the remainder of the first half with 10 men. And was it Archie? No, Archie Gemmell, excuse me, not Archie Knox. Archie Gemmell was saying to Brian Clough, we've only got 10 players on the pitch, Gaffer. And he's going, let them cope, let them cope. So they get to sort of, half time. They bring a player on. They finish the game, whatever. Comes to the Monday. They're at training now. And they're all sort of like training and whatever. And Brian Clough turns up sort of like a little bit after the fact. The training was being taken by Archie Gemmell and all the rest of them. And was it Alan Hill? I think was one of his coaches.
Alan Taylor, was it?
No, Alan. I'm sure his name was Alan Hill.
All right, okay.
Anyway, so they're doing the training and whatever. And as Brian Clough pulls into the car park, in his parking space is this car. And he's like, what the fuck's this? So he's sort of like, he gets out and he starts whacking it. He had this tennis racket by all accounts. And he starts sort of like whacking this car that's in his parking space. Sort of starts whacking it. He goes over and he turns around and says, who's got their car in my fucking space? And this hand goes up and it's David Curry. And he turns around and says, what's your name, son? And he turns around and goes, David Curry. And he goes, David Curry? And he says, well, yeah, you signed me in the summer sort of thing. And he goes, where did you come from, David Curry? And he goes, Barnsley. And he turns around and goes, Barnsley? That's where the imbecile's from, which is Mark Crossley. And he turns around and says, can I ask you a question, young man? And he says, yeah, boss, go for it. And he goes, have you bought a house in the Nottingham area? And he goes, no, not yet. And he goes, let me stop you there, son. Don't fucking bother. And that was his career done. I think he'd been there about 4 games by all accounts. He fucked him off for playing like an absolute prick and then parking in his space in the car park. He just fucked him off.
Yeah, Cloughie was absolutely mental. Good times.
He was.
Good times. Yeah, but yeah, great story. That I love hearing about Cloughie's stories. I know there was one. There was one as well with a mascot or something, a little boy. Remember him telling the story where
about the zits.
About the zits, when his face was covered in the acne, like really bad. He's only a little kid, and he says, "What's wrong with that young man's face?" He said, "I've got acne, Cloughie." He says, "Come with me, young man." He brings him into where the physios are. He just walks him in and says, "Got anything for this young man's face?" And they give him they put him up. They give him these fucking steroids or something. He's only a kid. He shouldn't be having this stuff. Yeah, it's quite strong stuff. They've given him all this fucking.
And it worked.
It worked. They got rid of him, but his mother was like, "What?"
Wasn't it like horse tranquilizer or some shit like
horse
that?
Tranquilizer, fucking steroid or something. They put all over this kid's face, and his mum was like, what have you done to my son? You know what I mean? He's
Brian
fucking
Clough, what can you do?
Clough, what a fucking mental case, but he was absolutely priceless.
Oh, he was brilliant.
But
Like I say, not enough characters. They're all too sort of formulaic and by the numbers. It's like, oh fucking yeah. I just seen that comment from Matt. He probably did, Matt. Kid grew a
what's that?
beard at 10.
He probably did, yeah. Probably woke up with pubes.
Yes, you know, he grew up. He was like at 10 years of age. He woke up the next day. He was 6'2" and 275 pounds.
Yeah. Great stuff. Great stuff. All right, we better get on to West Ham at some point, I
Oh,
suppose.
must we?
Yeah, we can
Oh,
we should
bollocks.
yeah, we'll do a nostalgia show sometime just for fun or something. Um but yeah, it's just something I want to get into was before we get into, we'll get into all the football stuff, all the on the pitch stuff, what's been going on so far this season. But it's just something that I don't like that's been going on this last week from inside the club, which I think is really, really distasteful and not a good look for anybody, bar Lopetegui, because whatever you think of him, I don't think he hasn't done anything off the pitch wrong or said anything wrong. But there's just more and more stuff here, and there seems to me there's a particular agenda from within the media, certainly the sports media, certainly, but they're always trash and scumbags often anyway, so that doesn't surprise me too much. But also, I think very disturbingly from within the club. Um, and so there's a bit to go through. There's a lot of moving parts here. I suppose from the sports media side of things, um, it's no secret to anyone that a lot of people in the sports media, certain pundits, former players, are quite enamored with David Moyes. Very possibly because they have some form of personal relationship with him. They meet him on the speaking circuits and all this stuff. And they've been going to bat for him for a number of months. And so the knives have come out very, very quickly in the sports media for Lopetegui because they see him as almost like the evil stepdad. It's you're not my dad thing. You're not David
Yeah.
Moyes, and then you've replaced this guy that we always kind of back up. And so the other day on Talksport they had Tony Cottee on. I don't know if you saw the interview on there, and Tony Cottee is going on about fawning over David Moyes, first of all, and then dismissing Lopetegui in the sense that saying, "Well, I never wanted him at the club anyway. It's not a forward step. It's not progressive. It's a sideward step, and all this stuff, which I don't like to see." I don't know what we'll just deal with maybe the sports media side of things first, because the whole "be careful what you wish for" a crowd are absolutely loving every second of this. They are absolutely delighted that Lopetegui has started very poorly at West Ham. What's your take on all that stuff first and foremost? And are you surprised at all by it?
No, not surprised. The media, as you say, have got a vested interest in banging the David Moyes drum. I find it a bit strange, actually, because it's like, well, do they actually think that even if, let's just suppose in a parallel universe, we lose to Brentford, we lose to Ipswich, and we get into the international break with a game on Spurs against Spurs away after that, and they pull the trigger at that point, which is not an inconceivable set of events, let's be honest. Do they actually think that David Moyes is going to be ushered back in a third time so quickly? I don't. So it's like, I think they
I think
need to
it's spite.
accept that he's, yeah, it's exactly that. It's just a load of old sort of Fleet Street hacks that have got some sort of friendship with our former manager that just seem to want to be proved right. And okay, at the minute, maybe they've got a point, but it's like, well, what do you think's going to come of it, really? He's gone. the former manager is no more, and you know he did a good job for us. Good luck to him in the future, but his time it had run its course, and I think most people with a brain could observe that. He did well for us, but everything moves on. Everything has its time, and everything must pass, and that's pretty much the end of it. I do get what Tony Cottee says in that, you know, was I necessarily someone that advocated getting Julien Lopetegui in? No. But at the end of the day, he is the manager, and I will support him, and I hope he can turn it around because I want West Ham to be successful. I think the problem I think though was the die was cast for the head coach in transfer window with all that expenditure, with all the players coming in. There is a pressure attached to that. You're expected to hit the ground running, and for whatever reason, he hasn't.
Yeah,
But the thing I
granted.
find quite
But
sorry,
look, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like if you're talking about on the pitch, no problem whatsoever. And we'll
no,
get to that soon. And I will have my criticisms of Lopetegui
yeah,
about what's going on the pitch and what is or isn't apparently going on in the training ground or whatever else. No problem. Of course, you can talk about the bad start. Things look a bit
yep.
shambolic and all the bit, but this feels more personal. Like this is
Yeah, it
putting
doesn't
the
it
boot
doesn't
in.
sit right with me. All of this stuff coming out, and there doesn't seem to be anybody really in the media that's actually going, wait a minute, wait a minute. There's been an awful lot of turnover of staff, players in, players out. It is going to take time. This is a guy that he's trying to change the culture at the club. He's trying to change the philosophy from the previous manager who was there for some time and had some success. And it is going to take time. There's nobody that really seems to be banging the drum for him, with the exception of Guillaume Balaguer. That he's
Who's
the
his
only
buddy?
guy that seems to be, yeah, he's the only guy that you've got in the media that's really sort of like coming out and going, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let's just fucking hang fire here and just see what he's got to offer. This what 5 league games, which is what we've played, or was it 6? 5, 6,
Five. Yeah.
5. Okay, so he's played
Five
5
league
league
and two
games.
cup. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's not enough of a sample size. I think if we played the next 2 games, as I say, parallel universe. If we played the next 2 games, got beat. Now that's one of
Yeah.
those games being Ipswich at home.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't fancy your chances too much, Sunshine. But I wish him. I wish him well. But all these comments coming out that are attributed to Stighton and Sullivan being
Yeah. Well,
2
that's what I want to get to
things,
next because
not happy
yeah,
with that.
yeah, that's what I want to get to next because this is the bit now that is really annoying the fuck out of me because sports media can be arseholes, they can be scummy. We all know that. But what should be happening inside the club when the likes of Sullivan and Stouden see people in the sports media sticking the boot in to the new manager is coming out publicly and backing him.
Yep.
Right? Regardless of what they think on a personal level, the public face, the public position should be like, calm down, lads. He's just in the door. It's 5 games. Let's give him a little bit of breathing space and give him an opportunity to put it right. But the opposite, in fact, has happened, and it doesn't sit with me. In the thumbnail, I used the word bullying, and this now is what it starts to feel like with me. And again, this is not something that sits well with me because you're still off the pitch. As a person, he's probably a very, very nice man, a very decent man, who's doing his best, whether he succeeds or fails. He's doing his best, and you can criticize his tactics and his formations and his team selections and results, no problem. And he accepts that that's going to happen. He's a head coach. I'm sure this is not his first rodeo. But when this kind of stuff starts happening, I think it's all wrong. I think it's actually completely immoral. We've got Tim Steidton using his media buddies to leak this story that, I warned Sullivan about Lopetegui, trying to distance himself from the appointment. And we've got Romano coming out with bullshit as well, which we know is coming from Steidton. We know they have a close relationship because Romano is the one who's always posting them fucking pictures with Tim on the fucking
on the plane.
coming back.
Yeah.
So, and then Sullivan is using his media buddies to say, no, it wasn't me, it wasn't all me. No, Tim was completely on board with this. It's like the 5 league games in, they're already both like trying to deflect blame and apportion blame and throw this guy under the fucking bus. That they appointed this guy at the beginning of the summer. He's played 5 games. To throw your manager under the bus publicly in this manner, to me, they should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. It's completely unacceptable behaviour.
Yeah, completely agree, mate. Couldn't disagree with the words you've said. I think that for me, who appointed the manager? Look, or the head coach, excuse me, it's a bit old school. I do look and I go, look, to me, it's fairly obvious. It was a Sullivan appointment because at the end of the day,
Will Salthouse is his agent.
He's a Will Salthouse client and he was out of work. How many times does David Sullivan approach an out of man? It's always someone that's out of work. He won't ever go to a club that have got a manager in harness and go, we will pay a compensation package. We want your manager. It's never done it. So the fact that he went, that there's that, I think that it points the finger at Sullivan rather than Stuyton. But here's the thing, and I can't make sense of this. So if you're the technical director and your remit is that you have this overarching control over all football matters, from who is the head coach down to players and all the rest of it, and you're brought in by the owner of the club with that remit, with that power, right? And then all of a sudden, the owner of the club goes, no, I'm going to select the head coach. Why is Tim still at the club? Because if that was me, I'd go, well, hold on a fucking minute. You've put me in this role to fulfill this task. And then you're coming in and going, bollocks to that. I'm going to do this. I'd go, do you know what? I'm out of here. I'm gone. See you later. So I'm then left questioning sort of, well, why is Tim still here? If that was not your appointment, Tim, if you fundamentally disagreed with it, well, surely you should have just gone, mate, up with this, I will not put, and you should have just fucked off.
I suspect Tim is biding his time. I think Tim Stuyton will leave sooner rather than later, but I think he probably decided or was advised, look, don't cut your nose off to spite your face by walking out of the job. It won't look good, regardless of the circumstances. It won't look good if you walk. But I suspect he probably does have an exit plan, that he will try to line something up and then go somewhere else. And I suspect Sullivan will probably give him his blessing. I imagine him and Sullivan probably have locked horns, and obviously the spectacle of this now, with both of them trying to throw each other under the bus as well, means their relationship is probably not great. And I think Sullivan would probably be quite happy for Tim to walk. I don't think he would lose a night's sleep over it, even though it wouldn't look great. But as we know, Sullivan has no shame. He doesn't care how it looks in the media, obviously, or he wouldn't be doing what he's doing right now. The whole thing is a shambles. We're still a circus. Sullivan is still a cretinous fucking piece of shit, in my opinion. Never liked him. Never will, I don't think. But the whole spectacle of this is shameful, in my opinion. And Lopetegui does not deserve this treatment. Whatever about the crap in the sports media, he can probably swat that away and say, look, they're the sports media. He's probably dealt with this stuff before, especially with all the Spain versus Real Madrid stuff that was going on previously. So media criticism, he probably doesn't care that much. But when he sees his own director of football and chairman throwing him under the bus publicly and using the media to do it, I'd be infuriated. It's no way to treat somebody on a personal level. Christ knows what this will do going forward now with the relationship between Lopetegui, Steidten, and Sullivan, will it make Lopetegui's position almost untenable? And I think, like, I can't work like this. Okay.
It can't help, can it?
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to be completely fractured now? I mean, he must be furious that this is happening.
He can't even rely upon the two people that are should be his closest allies. And whatever
Yeah.
you want to say about, whether you think that he's the second coming of Pep Guardiola, or whether you think he couldn't manage a sort of like a fish supper, is irrelevant. It's
Yeah.
They're the two people that should have his back. And like
Publicly,
you say,
certainly.
they're just taking it in turns to take pot shots at him.
Yeah, and I mean, whatever conversations are being had privately,
Yeah,
they should never be public. I mean,
no,
in
they should be
publicly,
backing him. They should come out and say,
yeah,
"He's our guy. We've appointed him. We've got a vision. We've given him a 2-year contract with an option for a third. We've given him a backing of this amount of money. We are a team in transition. We are going to give this guy time. He is our guy. He has our full confidence. He has our backing. The game against Brentford, whatever happens, happens, but he is going to be here." Now, even if, like you say, even if behind the scenes, they're like, "Mate, you've got 2 games and you've got to win them, and you've got to win them well. Otherwise, there will be a conversation in the next international break." That's fine. Not a problem. But when you're the public face, the sort of like the PR game, it's got to be, he's our guy. We back him. Fuck off with all this Moyes bullshit. He's our man.
yeah.
Done.
I mean, like, with all the shit that's come out in recent days between the club itself and sports media, the club haven't even released a statement.
Mm.
They haven't even tried to fight the fire. They're just letting it burn. They haven't even come out and said, "Oh, all this media stuff is rubbish. We're completely behind him." Yada yada yada. Club statement released. We're all in it together. We're all pulling in the same direction, and just not crickets, which leads you to believe that this is a real thing.
Mm.
It's a real thing that's going on behind the scenes, where they're airing their laundry publicly, trying to distance themselves from who appointed him and who didn't, who bought what player. Fucking Sullivan coming out saying, "Oh yeah, Somerville was one of mine."
Mm.
Like,
That's not helpful either, is it?
shut the fuck up, you
Yeah.
egotistical fucking dwarf. Shut
But
up.
again, that's another thing that makes me think, if I was Tim, mate, I'd be the fuck out of here, because if we're in a position now where the head coach, the majority shareholder who's appointed me, Tim Steidten, as the technical director, as I say, with an overarching power to do everything football related, from appointing a head coach downwards, everything related. And then 5 minutes later, comparatively, he comes in, the majority shareholder, and goes, "No, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Bish bash bosh." I simply would just turn around and go, "Do you know what? My fucking presence here is completely redundant, because you're doing this, you're doing that. You've brought in a head coach that I didn't fucking approve. You've brought in a player that I didn't fucking approve. See you later. Gone." I just don't understand why he's still here. Maybe he has got an exit plan. I don't know, but it just seems a little bit strange. And all this, like I say, all this shit coming out, it is so unhelpful. It's really counterproductive.
Yeah, and just like off the pitch, just on a personal level, I actually feel really bad for Lopetegui, because he doesn't
Yeah,
deserve that. He just does
yeah,
not deserve that. This is not how you treat people. You know, I believe in fairness, you know, in the way that you treat people.
mm,
And this is completely out of order in my book. I think it's quite disgusting. And I actually feel really bad for Lopetegui. You know, he's got probably enough stress as it is. This is not the start to the season he wanted, you know, and he is under some pressure. And the last thing he needed was this shit.
mm,
So I actually, fucking Sullivan, and he just got me rooting for the guy now. You know what I mean? He's got me rooting for fucking Lopetegui now. Whereas
mm,
before I was kind of indifferent. It was just a manager who would succeed or fail.
mm.
And ultimately that's still how I'll view it, I guess. I'll be, you know, pragmatic and dispassionate about it. But It's part of me now actually rooting for Lopetegui because of the way I feel like he's being treated.
Yeah, well, it's a lead weight around him. It's going to be something that's going to weigh heavy on him. To have the two people that should be number one and number two advocate side by side, and it's like, well, where the fuck are they? Oh, that's right, they're behind me with a knife in their hand, about to plunge it into my back. It's like, come on,
Yeah,
fuck's
I
sake.
mean,
And that's not the West Ham way.
no,
We've always
it's
been a
just
club that have tried to stick by their managers down the years. Even when the manager, you looked and went, mate, they are hopelessly out of their fucking depth here. They need to be moved on. And we've always persisted. We've always been a club that have probably carried on probably longer than most other clubs was, because there's a little thing called loyalty. And it
yeah,
just seems like at the minute, it's like, where's that?
yeah, it's absolutely shocking, just disgusting. But anyway, look, we'll see how this plays out um, over the coming days. But so to get back to on the pitch, um, obviously, look, we haven't spoken obviously yet, Gatesy, this season about the games, but it's a very very worrying start to the season. A
Mm,
very worrying start. Obviously, the results haven't been there, which I could live with if I could kind of see what we were trying to do. Because I didn't necessarily expect a fast start. Obviously, we knew we had Villa and Chelsea and the City, and not easy games.
no.
Um, so I wasn't necessarily. It's not necessarily that we haven't won many games. That we've got 4 points at this point.
Mm,
Um, that doesn't shock me massively because new manager, bunch of new players, new system, all that. I said, okay, maybe it's going to take a little while before we get into our stride. But the real worry for me so far, Gatesy, is I can't really see any rhyme or reason to what we're doing. I can't see what is the system exactly here. Like what is it we're trying to do? I just can't see where it's going or what it's supposed to be, which is the real worry for me.
mm. Yeah, it seemed very. I'm struggling to work out what we are now. I mean, we seem to be a team that has a bit more possession than what we did under the previous boss. Um, and he's capable of making proactive subs rather than reactive subs, or just the fact that he can make subs, quite frankly. But it's like the style of football doesn't seem to be a million miles away from what it was before. And I can't work out some of the selection things. And this is what kind of feeds into the narrative of. And I did a I did a video on Massive earlier in the week, and it might have been a bit provocative, but sometimes you kind of have to shake the tree, don't you? You have to
Yeah,
sort of like ask thought provoking questions. And I just sort of like put this theory forwards that, and this was several days ago, so this was before uh, maybe a lot of the sort of like the momentum really has built behind this narrative, where I sort of like said, is there a bit of a civil war between the head coach and the technical director? And I did the thumbnail, and I sort of like I used the film Captain America Civil War as the inspiration for the thumbnail. And it got quite a bit of traction for a channel of my size, to be fair. I was quite pleased with it. And some people sort of thought it was a little bit of hyperbole on my part, and
a
that's
bit of
fine. And
mischief making, or
that's part of the gig, guys. I've got to tell you, if you've got a YouTube channel, you need to try and get people to watch your stuff. Otherwise, it's not really too much points. Sometimes you have to kind of have to poke a bear with sharp sticks. But yeah, I do think that there's quite a bit of shit in the background, as far as that's concerned. I mean, one of the things that I sort of think is that the signing of Jean-Claire Todibo, it's a bit strange that we've chased this guy, chased this guy, chased this guy, chased this guy. He has 7 minutes of Premier League football under his belt. And in the game against Chelsea, when we played a defensive midfielder at centre back, and we had Todibo on the bench, and we was getting torn apart defensively. Those 2 goals in the first half are testament to that. That was just like that was shambolic defending. And he didn't use the guy. And my understanding is, rightly or wrongly, he's got a 5. The conditional obligation to buy hinges on the fact that he has got to start 5 Premier League games. He's not started any yet.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what's going on here? This is all a little bit strange. All a little bit strange. And I think it will probably be tomorrow's game that I'll really look at. And if I see that he's on the bench again and he has no real involvement, I think that's when I'll get an alarm bell sort of like going that, yeah, there's definitely some shit going on behind the scenes between those two, because if he knows that the obligation is triggered with 5 Premier League starts, he just won't fucking play him if you don't fancy the player.
Yeah, the Todibo one is interesting. It is a little bit bizarre that he hasn't started any games yet. So it's definitely one to keep an eye on and see what happens there. I'll keep my powder dry on that one. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Todibo. I mean, look, maybe he starts tomorrow, and then we're all like, all right, okay, nothing really much to it. But if he doesn't, if he continues to be on the bench, then definitely there's something is amiss.
Just on Mike's comment there, you're absolutely correct. We did have similar things happening last season. You're absolutely correct, Mike. The difference was we had obviously the manager and a technical director that was brought in over him that he fundamentally didn't want there. Whereas now we've got, if you believe, we've got a harmonious sort of situation of a head coach and a technical director. So this should be different, right? But it doesn't seem like it is.
Yeah, and certainly the crazy goings on this week won't help the situation whatsoever. But that's the other thing with Lopetegui, I think, so far, is that he still doesn't seem to even know what his best 11 is.
No,
he's chopping and changing the team all the time. This player in, this player out, and making 3 or 4 changes sometimes. So I think, he's still, for some reason, trying to figure out what his best 11 is, which is another very worrying thing, because if you've got a system in place of how you play and how you set up, it doesn't take too long on the training ground for you to figure out which players are the best ones in which positions to carry out what you require of them. Doesn't take very long.
You shouldn't think so, since he's coached the teams that he has. I mean, he's been coach of Spain and Real Madrid, so you'd think someone of his caliber should be able to identify that stuff pretty quickly.
His first 11 should be pretty much nailed on by now. I understand that some changes will be forced on you, or you may make a tactical change in a certain game because you think, okay, for what I want to do in this particular game, it may be a particularly difficult game, right? Say if you're away to Man City, you may think, oh, geez, okay, I maybe need this player instead for this one, because of how we're going to have to approach this different tactically, because we're not going to see so much of the ball, so I need this player in instead for that reason. Absolutely fine doing that. But this constant chopping and changing suggests to me that he still doesn't even know really what system we're even playing or what he's trying to do. I certainly can't see it. And it seems to me as well that the players don't seem to quite know what they're doing or what's expected of them. There's no fluidity. The new manager, his name escapes me, forgive me, that took over Brighton in the summer.
Fabian Herzler.
Yeah. Brighton kicked off and it's like everyone knows what they're doing. You can see the way they're playing. You can see the system. Everyone's clear on what they're doing. It looks cohesive. It looks fluid. He's a new manager into the league. And Brighton just hit the ground running, no problem. Chelsea have had a really good start. New manager, who's had to look at 2 squads of players really in the pre-season and decide which ones were going to fit what he was trying to do and get rid of the rest, which is what he did. He was able to do that. Chelsea's had a good start to the season. They look strong. You can see the way they play. You can see the system they're using and what they're trying to do. But with us, it just seems just a complete mess at the moment. The players just don't seem to have a clue what they're supposed to be doing.
They looked like, and I was actually at the Chelsea game last week, they honestly looked to me like they were 11 people, just 11 random people that West Ham have gone out into Stratford, Saturday morning, early afternoon, whatever, and just grabbed the first 11 people that they've seen roaming around and said, "Do you fancy a kickabout on the London Stadium pitch?" They just seemed to be so disjointed. It was like they'd only just met. Your
Yeah.
teammates, for fuck's sake, your Premier League players, your internationals, most of you, and they were made to look absolutely sort of shit last week.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing.
Yeah. And it's obvious now that he needs to figure this out very fucking quickly. He just needs to decide on something. Decide on what way he wants them to play. I mean, they've had more than enough time on the training ground now to have got it down. He just needs to pick a way of playing, get his first 11 sorted, more or less, and just put them out there and get them doing something cohesive. Because, as I say, I know, as you say, historically the club have been very patient with managers. But it doesn't appear like it would be the case on this occasion. So I think he does have a very limited amount of time, and he needs to start picking up some results. And more importantly, from my point of view, not just getting some results, because we got a good draw at Fulham and a good win away at Palace. But if you watch those games, there still was that lack of cohesion, lack of kind of team identity, and even they weren't great performances. I think the one kind of ray of light you could even point to probably was the second half against City, where I thought we actually looked really decent and we troubled them. So clearly we're capable of it. So he needs to just decide what he wants from the team and just fucking stick to it and hope he can get some results, because he's certainly got some excellent players. Certainly got some excellent players who could go to Brentford and beat them, who can win at home against Ipswich, who should be able to go and give Tottenham a game at their place. But his time is short. As for tomorrow, as the Brentford game, it just feels like a huge game now. Just feels like massive. He can't go there and lose that.
No. But it's somewhere we're going that traditionally we don't have an easy time of it. We do not have a good record at Brentford at all. I'm worried, mate. Going into this game, I'm really worried. We're facing a pivotal moment in our Premier League season. 6 games in.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking hell.
And of course, it can't be forgotten, because it was mentioned so often during the game, is that for the first time in this club's history, we've lost our first 3 home games of a season.
Yeah.
Which is
Even under Avram Grant, we didn't manage that.
Yeah, and it's quite an astonishing record, actually, when you think about it. It's a long bloody history. We've never lost our first 3 home games. So he has that record, unenviable record.
Not sure he wants it.
Yeah, but as for tomorrow, we'll kind of step away from Lopetegui for a second. We'll talk about what you think you would like to see tomorrow, because I think there are actually some real decisions to be made, particularly defensively, maybe not so much. But once we start getting into midfield, there's real thinking to be done about, say, the midfielders and, in fact, the forward line. So just to deal quickly, because I think this will be the easy part. Keeper and back four you would play tomorrow, Gatesy.
Okay, my team, and I'm probably sort of doing myself out of a few people that are going to come over and watch the match preview on the West Ham Massive. But okay, I'll indulge you, Tom. Areola in goal, and I would go with a back four, left to right, Emerson, Kilman, Todibo, and Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
easy.
Yeah, and probably most people would say that. You might have some people who'll have Mavropanos in instead of Todibo. No problem with that. If that's their opinion that they'd prefer to see Mavropanos, no problem. Not too much controversy there. And I don't think the people who would start Mavropanos would be up in arms if Todibo was starting, instead. The problem now we have is the midfield, and how that's going to set up. And we've also got some. Obviously, Alvarez is unavailable, but virtually everybody else, I believe, is available. Fulkrug has been training, and he said he just didn't want to risk him in the Liverpool game, so he will be available for selection. Just can't have Alvarez. And then there's, before we get into the actual players you would like to see, there's also the question of the forward line as well, and it all kind of ties into the midfield depending on what pieces you want to move where. Two major questions, I guess. Paqueta. More stuff coming out about Paqueta, which doesn't look great. Doesn't look great at all for his chances with the Premier League, with these charges he's facing. That I think it was his uncle Bruno was sending money to a Brazilian player over in Brazil who was picking up yellow cards as well, and I think in the same games as Paqueta, and he was wiring money to this guy. It doesn't look too clever, and to be honest, so far this season, it looks like it's weighing heavily on Paqueta. He has not looked the same player, but at the same time, he's so good that it's not easy to just drop him to the bench. But I think the question has to be asked about. I think you have to really think about the Paqueta question now, because it does seem to be in his head. And as good as he is, would you be tempted? Is it something you have to think about? Or are you like, no, it's Paqueta, of course you play him?
I think you do have to consider it personally. I'm not saying that I wouldn't start him, but I think I would give it an awful lot of consideration. You're right. He's not looked at his anywhere close to his best at all this season. And I do wonder whether it's things going on off the pitch, things behind the scenes that maybe he's looking and going, "Oh shit, I am in a world of trouble here." They have got an awful lot of shit on me. This does not look good. I mean, that would not be if he knew what possibly is going on, then
Yeah,
I
he
wouldn't
would have.
blame him.
Yeah, he would have. I'm sure he would have known long before we found out.
Yeah, I'm sure he would have done, but he probably didn't. He probably was working on the fact that okay, you think you know what you know, but you've got to prove it. And probably what's happened is as time's rolled on, there's been more evidence that's mounted up that he will be aware of that the people have got on him, the authorities, and he's probably now gone, oh fuck, now I'm in the shit.
Yeah,
now I'm in the shit because now I know that actually they've got stuff that I know that I've done. I know that people around me have done, but a year ago I was like, well, yeah, fucking prove it, put up or shut up. And a year later, it's like they have put up. My career's on the line here. I could be out of a fucking job.
Yeah, and I guess the other question revolves around Kudus. Started out the season on the left wing, not his best position by any stretch. He'll still work hard. He'll do his best, but he's far less effective on the left wing. Bowen up front isn't ideal. I know he can do it, but it's a case of with Bowen, I think, who also hasn't had a great start to the season.
No.
But I thought he was much better against Liverpool back on the right-hand side. And it's certainly his best position. And again, we shouldn't be having to do this. We shouldn't be having to chuck Bowen up for top this season again. This should have been dealt with. I know the Fulkrug injury didn't help, and Antonio being off for playing for Jamaica didn't help. But when it comes to strikers, we shouldn't still be in this position, really. I think Bowen has to play on the right, because if we're going to get the best out of our best players, Bowen has to be on the right-hand side, not up top, in my opinion. It's fine in an emergency if you have injuries to Fulkrug and Antonio, or suspensions or something like that, when you kind of just have to put him up there. But other than that, he should be on the right. And then that brings back to, well, what do you do with Kudus? Because Somerville looks very, very lively on the left. And I think his last couple of performances means that you've got to start Somerville now over there. He looks really lively. He's done well. He wins a lot of free kicks. He does go past people. He looks dangerous when he cuts inside in and around the box. Should have won as a penalty as well. It wasn't given, by the way. So those, I guess, are the two questions. Also, Alvarez is out, so there's a question of what do you do about that? It's not an easy one. So with Paqueta and Kudus and Alvarez being out, who do you go with, Gatesy?
Somerville left.
Yeah.
Bowen right.
She's starting with the easy ones.
They're the easy ones. Let's get them out the way.
Yeah.
You said Kudus and Paquetá are out, did you? Is that right?
No. They're everyone's available except for Alvarez.
Right.
I was just asking the question.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Fulkrug's is out. Yeah. I would.
And where do you put Kudus?
So I'd this is me. I don't think it will happen, but this is how I would probably tackle it. I think I'd be tempted to play 4-4-1-1 as a formation. And I think I would be tempted to go Somerville left, Bowen right, your central mids, Carlos Soler, and here's an interesting one, Andy Irving. And then I would play Lucas Paquetá as the second striker, the free role, if you will. And then my striker would be Mohamed Kudus.
Yeah, there's certainly a case to be made for Kudus up front. He's done that before, by the way, just for anyone who doesn't know. He has played up front for Ajax and did very well up there. And he's a player who probably needs a goal or two, I think. Yeah, the interesting one is obviously that midfield as well. We've got Andy Irving, no Rodriguez, which is interesting because I think he was bought to be the backup to Alvarez, and Alvarez is out.
He's too slow, mate.
I think he's too slow in the way we've been playing. Yeah, I think there is a team in which he can play, and you can mitigate against his lack of pace, which is to not be playing this bloody high line. Just drop everyone back a bit and let him play as an orthodox DM, where he's basically not allowed to cross the halfway line. He's been roving a bit and getting forward and then can't get back, presumably under instruction. If he's to play against Brentford, the instruction should be, look, just don't go beyond the halfway line. Just stay closer to the back line. Stay closer to the defenders. I'm not see this high line isn't going to work unless you've got pace in there. Which means now Wan-Bissaka's got pace. He'll be fine. That's why I would bring in Todibo into the back line, because he's got pace. And obviously Emerson isn't slow, so he's got a bit of pace about him. He does have some recovery pace. Kilman isn't slow. You've seen him gliding up the pitch. He looks like he covers the ground quite well. So I think with those four in there, I think it mitigates against the counter attack a bit and getting caught in behind. Mavropanos for me is a bit slow, which would be a worry. And if you've got him and Rodriguez and you're playing the high line, I think that's when you get caught out, especially if Rodriguez is getting too far forward into the opponent's half. So I wouldn't want to see him do that. So like you, I had to think long and hard about what the hell to do. I was genuinely tempted to drop Paqueta to the bench because I just worry about where his head's at, and I wonder if we're going to see the best of Lucas Paqueta ever again at West Ham, because the next thing that might happen is that these charges stick and he's done. And I think Soler was brought in just in case that came to pass. I was very tempted to bring Soler in place of Paqueta. I really was. But I couldn't quite bring myself to do it because he is one of those players, Paqueta, that can still do something that I don't think anybody else that we've got can do. Which he can find that pass that just splits the defense wide open. He just has that quality. So I'm not quite there yet. I think if Paqueta was to be poor against Brentford, I think I would drop him for the home game with Ipswich, because I think in that game we could take a look at someone like Soler and say, right, look, show me that you deserve to stay on this pitch for the next game, and see if he grasps the nettle. But for this one, I would keep Paqueta. The midfield is a problem, like I said. Rodriguez, obviously, there's certain things about him that are a bit of a worry, mainly his pace. So the biggest thing for me was what to do in front of the back four. I agree with you. Obviously, Somerville left, Bowen right. That's a no-brainer. Against Brentford, it's like, do we need a DM like Rodriguez? I don't think so. I actually decided I had to think about, do you want Souček in there? He's very experienced. Now, I know he's not the best footballer in the world. I know, but I had to think about him too, because he is actually excellent in both boxes.
Yes.
Excellent defensively in our box. Excellent, causes real problems for opponents in their box. The problem, obviously, is the pitch in between the two 18-yard boxes. Is he doesn't really offer much. In the end, I actually am plumping, believe it or not, for Soler and Paqueta. I'm going to put Soler and Paqueta alongside each other in the midfield.
Interesting.
With Kudus in the number 10 role and Fulkrug up top. Fulkrug, I think we paid 27 million for him. It's about time now we just get him integrated into the team and get this guy going. It's been fits and starts for Fulkrug so far, coming off the bench. Then he picked up this minor injury, but he's good to go now. We've paid enough money for him. He's supposed to be our number 9, so let's fucking play him as our number 9, give him a run of games, and let's see how he can do, because we haven't seen enough of him to make any kind of real judgment. I think the only way to do that is to just put him up top and give him a little run of games, and let's see how he can do, because he is a finisher and he is good technically, very good with the ball at his feet, bringing other players into play. His interplay is good. He's a clever player. His movement's good. So I want to give him a chance, because that's what he was brought to do. So, and I don't trust Rodriguez. I don't think there's enough football in Souček, because I actually think I think Brentford will be quite happy for us to have a lot of the ball.
Yeah.
So I think we actually need ballers on the ball who can make things happen. And for me, like, that's Soler and Paqueta. Their range of passing. Soler in the Liverpool game I quite liked, actually.
I thought he played well.
I thought he did really well. He looks pretty. He looks
I think-
pretty mobile. You know,
I think that the 5-1 kind of was harsh on us. I know we had the player sent off and that didn't help, but
yeah,
I did think that 5-1. I'm not sure it was that sort of like. It certainly didn't look
yeah.
like the game last season that I was at. 5-1 was 5-1 game. That was like fair enough. The game the other night for me wasn't.
Yeah, no, it was a kind of a strange game. It was the scoreline didn't really reflect the game. You know,
Yeah.
they just got a
I
bit of
thought-
a run on us, especially after we went down to 10 men.
Yeah.
And
Soler, I
we were,
thought played well.
yeah. Well, I mean, we were 3-1 down, and we just kind of had to throw some caution to the wind, and got caught out, unfortunately, a couple of more times. But yeah, for me, I would just play Soler and Paqueta in the middle, Somerville left, Bowen right, Caduce in the 10, Fulkrug up top. We've just trust these guys to be able to outpass and outplay Brentford. With the talent that's on the pitch, we should be able to do that. And like from what I saw of Soler, he's willing to do a lot of running. He looks pretty mobile. He's not old, was he 27 or something? He's still in his prime years. Paqueta the same. Paqueta will always run about. He'll put a tackle in. He'll get stuck into things. He'll challenge for aerial balls in midfield. And as long as you have a good chat with Soler and say, look, you're going to have to work because you're going to be in midfield and you're going to have to do the closing down. You're going to have to make the tackles. He looks like a player is willing to do it from what I saw at Anfield. And I just think having two ball-playing midfielders in there that can both potentially make some things happen in the final third, play some defense splitting passes, potentially both of them. They've got the range of passing. So I would just go for it. And I hope Lopetegui does, because he needs it. I mean, what I don't want to see tomorrow is a team sheet come out and it's got fucking Rodriguez and Suchek.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think he's not going to be doing himself any favors like that whatsoever.
That will get ripped to shreds.
It will get ripped to shreds. With Caduce on the left and Bowen right, and either Antonio or Fulkrug up top. I'm going to be like,
brilliant. That's going to get its ass handed to it on a plate.
Yeah. We need mobile players in midfield that can pass a ball, and I think Soler and Paqueta will give you that, and they'll work hard. So, what's your gut feeling on tomorrow? I mean, it's hard to be confident, I suppose.
Oh dear. Honestly, Brentford to win 2-1 is what I think. I actually think we're going to get turned over. I think it could be a close game. I think it might even be a game that we can come away and go, you know what, we was fucking unlucky there. But do I think we're going to win tomorrow? No, I don't.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's hard to be confident because of the way things have been going, and for me, mostly because it's been so disjointed. Like from one game to the next, I just don't know what our identity is or what we're trying to do. The players don't look like they really know what they're supposed to be doing, and that's the real worry for me. Now that I suppose the one caveat is that Wissa is out, who would have been a real problem, and they're missing both fullbacks as well. So both fullbacks are gone for Brentford as well. So they've got two backup fullbacks in there. So with Bowen and Somerville, I think we might get some real joy, actually. And I think if Lopetegui has his head about him, I would suggest, get a lot of ball out to Bowen and Somerville.
Yeah.
And early and test those backup fullbacks. I don't even know if they're going to be playing two fullbacks. They may be in a position where they have to play a centre back out in one of the positions. I'm not sure, because I don't know who the backups are to Aaron Hickey and Rico Henry, but they're two very important players for them in that system too. By the way, Rico Henry and Aaron Hickey, two vital players, and they're out. And Wissa obviously is one of their star men. So I still worry about Brian Mbuemo. He tends to have a really good game against us for whatever reason. He tends to play well against us, but and the thing is, I think we have to not lose it. So I'm kind of stuck between where Brentford are missing these players, which gives us a real opportunity, but we look like we don't know what we're doing. Um, and like you say, it hasn't been a happy hunting ground. Our only win there has
No.
been in the cup, and that was
Yeah.
when I think Thomas Frank made about 7 changes to the team.
Mhm.
So I think maybe they're weakened enough that we can get something. Because they're not a great team, Brentford. I mean, they're well organised. They know what they're doing. But with the players they're missing, I think maybe we can get something.
Hmm.
So I'm going to go for a 1-1. But it's one of those games like,
Is that your heart or your head talking, Tom?
yeah, yeah, maybe a little bit of both. But it's because it's just one of those games anyway. I think that no result will be a surprise.
Hmm.
If Brentford win it, nobody's going to be shocked. If it's a draw, nobody's going to be shocked. If we nick it, no one's going to be shocked. It's one of those games that it's so hard to call because anything
Yeah.
is possible. If Brentford were at full strength, I would probably be saying we'll get beat. But I just feel like the players that have got missing, some vital players that are
Hmm.
important to the way they play, and I think that will hurt them. I think it will affect their ability to hurt us, and will increase our ability to damage them, particularly down the wings. So I'm going to say 1-1. I'm going to go 1-1 draw.
Hmm.
Um, I'm actually, obviously we need to get something from it. We need to not lose this game, but I'm almost more interested in seeing how we look. Like we could shithouse a 1-1 draw and still look really bad,
Hmm.
and it wouldn't make me feel any better, even though we've gotten a
Like the
point.
Fulham game.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see something from the team, to say, okay, that looked a lot better, more cohesive. Players seem to know what they're doing. Much more promising performance. Even if we don't win the game, we have to settle for a point. I just want to see a performance that says, okay, maybe these are some green shoots. You know, not that I'm confident of that because it's not what we've seen so far.
Hmm.
I'm kind of clinging to the second half against City a little bit in my head.
It's the
It's like
hope that kills you, Tom.
yeah, it's the hope that kills you. But I just feel like we've shown we can do it. If not consistently, we've shown that it is there, and has shown at times. I thought against Liverpool at times, I thought we were doing quite well. So we'll see. Um,
Maybe
but
we need to play games behind closed doors and play 30 minutes a half.
yeah,
Maybe that's the secret.
yeah. But obviously, look, my opinion might completely change when the lineup comes out.
Hmm.
If I see kind of
Suchik and Rodriguez.
Rodriguez and Kudus on
Antonio up top. Oh,
the
fuck.
left, Antonio up top, then I'll completely flip and be like, all right, we're completely
Mavropanos at centre back.
I'll say I'll think, yeah, we're fucked. Um,
I'll go and do the
so
gardening.
yeah, uh, doesn't bear thinking about really. To be
Yeah.
honest, if that happens, he's just making a rod for his own back, frankly.
It's like he wants the sack then.
Yeah, it's like, mate, you're not doing yourself any favors
No,
whatsoever here,
no.
But look, we'll see what happens. But we'll leave it there, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon, and we'll have that game and to talk about next week, hopefully. But listen, really appreciate you joining me, Gatesy.
No problem.
Just remind everyone quickly where they can find you.
You can find me at the West Ham Massive. If you're not already subscribed to the West Ham Massive, please feel free to pop along and subscribe. We've got our match preview of the Brentford game tomorrow scheduled for 10 a.m. So please pop along and get involved.
Not to be missed, despite the spoilers. Sorry, Gatesy.
I might have to sort of rejig my tea. I probably will. I'll probably go, actually, no, I'll tweak it around and whatever. So
Invite me onto your show next week, and you can turn the tables on me.
you can come tomorrow if you like.
Yeah. When is it? 10 a.m.
10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I'll be working, mate. Sorry.
Ah,
Off to work in the morning.
damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, otherwise absolutely would. But I'll get on there sometime when my schedule kind of lines up with yours, and we'll definitely have a
Be
chinwag
good
on
to have
that.
you, mate.
But everyone, check out the West Ham Massive, great channel, and as you know, Gatesy knows his stuff. Always interesting topics. As always, thanks to everybody in the live chat. One of these weeks, very soon, I promise all of you. I will come on my own, and it will be a show dedicated to the live chat, and I will do full interaction with the live chat. Read out all your questions that you might have for me, and your statements, your opinions, because you guys deserve that. Really appreciate you all. Every week you join in and in the chat, and I do see them, I do read them. So I'll dedicate a show to you very soon, just to show my appreciation, and also to anyone who's been watching live but hasn't been in the chat. Appreciate you being here. Means a lot to me. And as always, leave any comments that you have after. I will read them. I do read them. Um, and look forward to speaking to you again soon, Gatesy, mate.
Will do, mate. Looking forward to it.
And until then, as always, my friend.